Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Beverly Unitarian Church. My name is Reverend David Schwartz and I am the minister here at Beverly. In this congregation, we welcome all people, every color of the rainbow, every place on earth, whatever your past is like, whatever this present moment is like. We invite you to walk into the future with us. We celebrate a diversity of beliefs, striving always to make space for more. And like other Unitarian Universalist congregations, we affirm certain principles, and normally I would say they're there on the back of the order of service, but this morning I will just tell you to Google them. This is our first Sunday meeting virtually. This is our first Sunday not gathered together here in the castle in Beverly, but online. Starting this Sunday, and at least for the next few weeks, at least through April, we'll be meeting virtually. We'll do Facebook Live just like we are right now. And we'll see how it goes. I'm sure there are things we won't get right along the way, and I'm sure there are ways we'll need to figure it out and be flexible, and that's part of what we are. If the last couple of years dealing with the turrets and this building has taught us anything, it's that we are a people who are resilient and a people who are flexible and adaptable and who stick together, especially when things are difficult like they are right now. I am delighted this morning to welcome our guest preacher, the Reverend Ruth Van Lillian, who has come and was in Chicago anyways from out of town, so we decided let's just have her preach to a pretty much empty house. There's a whole lot of information in our usual welcome that I won't be telling you right now. I won't invite you to stay for coffee hour after the service, but I will invite you to chat with the other people who are on the Facebook Live stream. I won't invite you to look on the table near the entrance for information about who we are or give us your contact information, but I will invite you to go to the church's website and check out so much information about who we are. Browse the photo gallery on the Facebook page and see all the kinds of things that we do. And if you'd like to reach out, send an email or send a message to the church by Facebook. We'll get in touch with you. And now, please take a moment to make sure your phones are not silenced or deactivated, but ready to go. It's good to be here with you, even in this different way.
Good morning. Our call to worship is adapted from words written by UU minister Dick Fuchs. For the sun and the dawn, which we did not create.
We give thanks this day.
For the moon and the evening, which we did not make.
We give thanks this day.
For food which we plant but cannot make grow.
We give thanks this day.
For friends and loved ones we have not earned and cannot buy.
We give thanks this day.
For this virtually gathered company, which welcomes us as we are from wherever we have come.
We give thanks this day.
For all things which come to us as gifts of being from sources beyond ourselves.
We give thanks this day.
We light this candle, this flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in our community, and in the world. Our opening hymn is Bright Morning Stars. I will sing the first verse. Bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising, days are breaking in my soul.
Friends, at this moment, I normally invite you to join with me in the words for our covenant printed in the order of service. Instead, this will be a test of how well you remember them. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. I invite you in the chat stream, in the comment stream, to warmly greet those who are gathered for worship this morning. Say hi, introduce yourself, check in. We'll give you just a minute to reach out. When we meet in person, it always takes a little while to corral us back together again after greeting. It's a warm house and an enthusiastic bunch of people who gather. I imagine, though I can't see the chat right now, that it's the same online. I want to take just a moment in our Time for All Ages to speak a word to kids and to speak a word to parents and families too. This that we're in right now is a difficult and an unexpected moment. This, whether you are a kid or whether you are a family with kids, is probably not how you expected to spend your next several weeks. And you may be wondering about how to make this happen. You may be wondering about what your days are going to look like. You may be worried about what happens if you get sick or if the people you love get sick. All of that is totally normal. It is completely regular to be worried about the people that you love and to be uncertain about what's going to happen. Nothing's gone wrong. If you're feeling that way, that's okay. In moments of crisis, in moments of emergency, Mr. Rogers always used to say, look for the helpers. And in a moment like this, that's who I think of. I think of all of those folks who are working together to help everybody out with this. I think of the doctors and nurses. I think of the custodians and janitors, the people who are cleaning the hospitals and the supermarkets and the places that we still have to go. I think about all these folks who are helping out together. I think about the paramedics and the firefighters who are still there responding to calls, helping people when they need help, even right now. And I also think about each of you. By staying home, by not going out to school or to work, by not coming to church this morning to gather, you're helpers too. You're helping out. You're doing your part not to spread this thing, this virus, which spreads before we even necessarily know that we have symptoms. You're doing your part as young people who aren't going to get that sick from it, probably. Everything we know is that kids and younger folks almost always do perfectly fine, like a bad cold. But you're doing your part not to spread your germs to the people around you, the people who might be at risk or your elders. And that makes you helpers too. Thank you. Friends, before we light our candles of community, take a moment to share just a few thoughts. The Buddhist monk and teacher Pema Chodron writes, as if for this very moment, we can never know what will happen to us next. We can try to control the uncontrollable by looking for security and predictability, always hoping to be comfortable and safe. But the truth is that we can never avoid uncertainty. This not knowing, this is part of the adventure. And it's also what makes us afraid. To stay with that shakiness, to stay with a broken heart, with a rumbling stomach, with a feeling of hopelessness, wanting to get revenge, that's the path to awakening, sticking with that uncertainty and getting the knack of relaxing in the midst of chaos, learning not to panic. That's the spiritual path. That's the spiritual path, to face reality and not to be overwhelmed by it, to acknowledge our own private fear and anxiety and anger, to say to ourselves, yes, this is real. I really feel this way. I am really worried about what is happening. And then to relax in the midst of chaos, not to panic, to care for each other and to care for ourselves right here and now. Resilience means facing reality without panicking, letting it all in, and finding a new way. And we are a people of resilience. The poet Dana Falls writes this called Allow. There is no controlling life. There's no controlling life. Try corralling a lightning bolt containing a tornado. Dam a stream and it will create a new channel. Resist the tide will sweep you off your feet. But allow, and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in, the wild with the weak, fear, fantasies, failures, successes. When loss rips off the door to your heart, or sadness veils your vision with despair, spiritual practice becomes simply bearing the truth. And in the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed to your new eyes. This is a moment of volatility, of uncertainty, of change, of anxiety, and it is exactly these moments which are opportunities to recommit ourselves to our deepest values, to practice our faith. This is the moment to call your people who don't have people. This is the moment to text your relatives. This is the moment to share your phone number with your neighbor and ask, how are you doing? This is the moment to listen. And when your friend calls you up and says, I am worried, you say, I love you and we are in this together. This is the moment to take care of yourself. Sleep plenty, drink plenty of water, pray. If you're a person who prays, journal, meditate, sing, spend time with your pets. If you have a dog, the next several weeks will be the greatest period in your dog's life, staying home with them. The spiritual path is not a denial of uncertainty, but a getting comfortable inside of it, finding the steady places in your heart and your spirit that will carry you through. And in that spirit, I invite you to join in prayer and meditation. We'll begin with candles of community, and then Reverend Ruth will come up for prayer and meditation. I'll begin first with a candle to name our fear, to name all our uncertainties and anxieties for the road ahead. A candle for everything in our life which is not set down right now, which still has to go on and continue, and our own struggles to try and figure out how we're even going to do that. Light a candle for the people that we love, the people that we worry over, the ones we already did before all this started, and the people we know who are at risk, the friends, the relatives who we worry over. We hold them in love. I light a candle for all the helpers, for the people who are doing the work to help each other, to help their families, for the kids who are staying home and making the best of it, and the parents too, for our emergency responders, for our healthcare workers, for the people who keep our places of business and our hospitals clean and disinfected, for the people who take care of the people who can't take care of themselves. And I light a candle of connection, to remember that we aren't alone. We may be stuck in our house by ourselves, but we are not alone. We're in this together, and we're stronger together. And so I'll light a candle of hope, too. A candle to remember always, always, that this is not the end, that this is just the beginning of something new, that there is life on the other side of this, and there's life right here and now in the midst of it. A candle of hope. And finally, for all those joys and sorrows, for all those anxieties, for all those hopes and gratitudes that we hold silently, one final candle.
I encourage you to settle yourselves into a space of meditation or prayer as that speaks to you. I will offer a few words and we'll have a few moments of silence. We are born into the middle of the human story, and we will leave in the middle. We cannot change what came before, and we will not be a part of what comes after. Let us make the most of our middle. May our middle help make the human story matter. Dona nobis pacem pacem, dona nobis 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 pacem.
Accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. And no virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as from our own. Therefore, we are saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. Friends, we won't collect an offertory this week as we figure out how to do that. And as sharp now as they ever are when we meet in person. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community, and we sustain it with our gifts.
Welcome. Welcome to a new day in the life of your congregation. Despite what you are seeing on the news, hearing on the radio, and reading on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, this is not the end of the world. Not even close, I promise. We are heading into rough seas and uncharted waters, to be sure. We are facing an enormous crisis in our country, and it probably feels like our individual and collective vessels are being tossed about with such force as to make us fear that we will capsize. But we won't. We are a community, and we have each other's backs, fronts, tops, bottoms. No one in this community is sailing in these rolling waves alone. We are all in this together, and we will weather the storm. Think back to the first time you walked into the door of this church. How did it feel? What did you notice first? Did someone speak to you, or did you enter quietly? What were you expecting? Did you know anything about Unitarian Universalism, or was it a random choice? Or perhaps this beautiful building attracted you? How did you feel after your first experience here? What were you hoping to find? Clearly, something intrigued you, appealed to you, touched you in some way that made you want to return. Something about this congregation met a need or offered something you had been searching for. Years ago, I was babysitting for one of my college professors, and one evening her husband came home, and as I gathered my things, we chatted a bit about my plan to go to seminary. He found this very interesting, and he confided that he had recently started going to church again after a long hiatus. Their son had just turned 2, and Rich smiled and shook his head as he confessed, "I love Nicholas, of course, but that child challenges me every day. I get so frustrated, and I hear myself expressing things I never imagined I would think, much less say, to my child." He looked up at me with embarrassment. "I'm going to church again because I need a place where I can be forgiven for being such an imperfect father." When you came through that church door, were you perfect? Were you looking for a gathering of perfect people? Sadly, churches have a general reputation of being places that expect perfection out of their members. When I watch the news, I get frustrated by what I call the culture of the superlative. Everything presented is the estest. You know what I mean? Homicides in the city are the worst since 2010. That movie grossed the highest ever in box office sales. A few years ago in Birmingham, Alabama, we had a little snowstorm, put down about a ½ inch of snow, and the local media quickly labeled it Snowmageddon, the worst storm ever. I know, you northern folk are laughing at us. In the last few weeks, all we hear is news of the worst, the baddest, and the ugliest statistics and reports of the current disaster compared to previous disasters and predictions of the direst of disasters to come. The estest news of recent days is the exhaustingest we've ever heard and provokes the worstest anxiety we've ever felt and promises to be the sleep-losingest, appetite-suppressingest, isolatingest, fear of running out of toilet paper-est apocalypse the world has ever seen. Well, at least since the last estest disaster the world had ever seen. Now, I don't mean to make light of the situation. COVID-19 is a bad, scary illness, and we are right to take it seriously and adopt a defensive posture. But maybe we could dial down the estest frenzy just a bit. Maybe we could find some room to relax together just a little and remember that we are not alone in this. Now, we have a long-standing tradition in our culture of admiring the superlatives. Now, where else would you go except the Guinness Book of World Records to study on that? I looked it up on the website. It's now called the Guinness World Records Company. The idea came about in the early 1950s when Sir Hugo Beaver managing director of the Guinness Brewery, attended a shooting party in County Wexford. There, he and his hosts argued about the fastest game bird in Europe and failed to find an answer in any reference book. In 1954, recalling the argument, he had an idea for a Guinness promotion based on settling pub arguments and invited the twins, Norris and Ross McWhirter, who were fact-finding researchers from Fleet Street, to compile a book of facts and figures. What turned out to be merely the first edition took the McWhirter brothers 13 and a half 90-hour weeks, including weekends and bank holidays. The new company, called Guinness Superlatives, was incorporated on the 30th of November, and the office opened in 2 rooms in a converted gymnasium on the top floor of Ludgate House in Fleet Street. And the rest is superlative history. And by the way, the fastest game bird in Europe is the golden plover, in case you were wondering. The attraction of being famous superlatives holds much sway over us. In fact, we learn to assign value to others and ourselves based on how we measure up to each other. We have leaders in this country who pay a lot of lip service to their ideas about winners and losers. There are mental health professionals who tell us that we learn a lot more from losing than from winning, that failure is often the first step to success. Now, it's not that I object to a little competition, nor am I immune to the ongoing fascination with the record setters, but I am concerned that we don't make enough room for everyone else. Most of us will never set a world record for anything. And those few who do will find the fame and admiration short-lived, because there is always a line of eager competitors waiting for a chance to set records of their own. The current state of emergency and our culture of the superlative are proving a dangerous combination, which threatens to make a bad situation worse. It is good to learn the facts, adopt sensible practices, make necessary lifestyle changes, follow emergency guidelines, and all the rest. The Estes messaging is designed to add panic to the mix, and panic never helps. Panic makes people do weird and crazy things. Panic makes people hoard toilet paper. Now, I heard a lot about excellence when I was growing up. I was encouraged to do my best in school and in extracurricular activities, and I received a lot of admiration for such efforts. However, censure was swift when I failed to live up to those expectations. Clearly, I was not doing my best if I wasn't making the top grades and receiving glowing reports from my teachers. There was no room made for being merely adequate in my academic pursuits. The area I couldn't excel in was sports. It was hopeless. I was physically a slow, uncoordinated, awkward child. I couldn't throw, I couldn't catch, I couldn't hit. I was a slow runner. PE, after-school care, summer camps were all my nightmare. My head is still filled with dreary memories of miserable, sweaty days with coaches yelling at me to run further, try harder, get with the program, hustle, Ruth. I was often at the top in the classroom, but on the playing field I was the last to be chosen for the team and the first to be mocked for my failings. It was an extraordinary relief to attend a high school which allowed me to substitute choir for phys ed. Sadly, I had learned by then to despise exercise, and that has not served me very well in the long run. It is one thing to admire perfection and another to punish the imperfect for their imperfections. Now think of the Olympics. Much media hype is made over potential gold medalists, but the athletes disappear from view the minute they have lost the gold. Oh, we pet on the silver and bronze medalists for a few screen minutes as we demand that they explain their failure and tell us how they're feeling about it. It is amazing more journalists are not attacked at such moments. These are the top athletes in the world in their respective sports. Only the top few ever even make it to the Olympics. Yet we treat those who didn't make the Estes scores like failures. More than once, I have told my own sons to be kind and encouraging to everyone in the class. There will always be someone in the room smarter than you, I said, and there will always be someone not quite as smart. But everyone has their own perspective, and everyone is worth listening to with respect and interest. The one on top today may be somewhere in the middle tomorrow. Right now is a good time to remember that for all of us. We all need each other, and it behooves us to dig deep in our reserves of kindness in these challenging days. Now, I came out of the Methodist tradition, and when I was ordained along with 20-something other colleagues, all together in a group, that's how the Methodists do it, I had to respond aloud to founder John Wesley's famous 19 questions asked of all aspiring clergy. And numbers 2, 3, and 4 came back to me recently. Are you going on to perfection? Do you expect to be made perfect in love in this life? Are you earnestly striving after it? Now, my co-ordinands and I struggled with these questions. How could we honestly claim that we expected to be made perfect, or even to be constantly striving for perfection? Most of us were just hoping to develop mere competency in the many and various skills we would need to be parish ministers. Perfection seemed not only impossible, but an unreasonable goal for us to strive for. Of course, I answered yes, like everyone else, but I felt unsure and even frightened of my imperfections and of my doubts. I know that all UU churches are conglomerations of faith perspectives, and that the Christian one is often the minority. But it is a big part of our history as UUs. There's a lot of Christian teaching back there, and we have inherited some of the same blessings and curses that our Christian church friends still struggle with. The history of obsession with perfection in churches and the mixed message that forgiveness is available, but everyone must be perfect, may come in part from a misinterpretation of a lesson that Rabbi Jesus is reported to have taught about the challenge of loving those whom we perceive as enemies. The 5th chapter of Matthew, which is one of the Christian sacred texts, reads, "Be perfect, therefore, as your Father in heaven is perfect." Taken out of context, this presents an impossible standard for any churchgoer to meet. It implies the church is only for people who are already perfect. And if that's really the case, then none of us has a place in any congregation. The misinterpretation of the passage lies in it being removed from the lesson, which is about trying to love our enemies and to pray for them. It is about aspiring to do more than love those who love us back and reward us for our affection. It is about a deeper, harder love. It requires us to aspire toward divine level compassion in order to really live with, cooperate with, engage with people around whom we do not feel comfortable. At a time when we are instructed to keep a physical distance from people for the sake of everyone's health, this call to deeper and more difficult love is well worth remembering. When I was asked as a Methodist aspiring to ordain ministry if I was going on to perfection and expecting to be made perfect in love and earnestly striving after it, I recognized that it was only with the deepest humility that I could answer with a small, scared, yet hopeful yes, believing that the power of love is stronger than both my own many imperfections and the brokenness of a world I so wanted to make better through my service. that brokenness will most certainly come into sharper focus in the days ahead. So back to when you entered the church door for the first time. Were you looking for a group of perfect human beings? If so, you must have been sorely disappointed. Sorry, Unitarian Universalists, y'all are right nice and very welcoming. Clearly you're committed to the 7 principles, and you're doing some great work to help make the world better, but perfect? Well, no. I must inform you, in case you weren't already aware, none of us is perfect. Yet, because I'm still working on those ordination vows. When you found your way to your church, were you looking for a place where you, all of yourself, would be welcome? Were you looking for a place to be forgiven, or accepted, or understood, or appreciated, or loved? Or all of these? Did you bring all your gifts and your imperfections? Did you offer all of yourself to the cause of building a better world? Well, you probably came to the right place then. And you were probably exactly the imperfect pilgrim this congregation needed, even if they didn't know it yet. We do have room for imperfection here, and we can learn from each other's gifts and help heal each other's brokenness. We don't all have to be superlative. We don't have to be the estest of the estest. We don't even have to pretend. When someone asks us how we are, we don't have to reply, awesome, especially if we are not feeling particularly awe-inspiring in that moment. We can say, if we wish, adequate, thanks, and you? Unitarian Universalism not only welcomes the imperfect, but we don't try to fix anyone either. No creeds here to force everyone to pretend to think alike. No strange practices to alter folk and make them appear more acceptable. Superlatives are optional here, and imperfection is welcome. Remember, siblings and kindred, that we are all in this boat together, all imperfect, all a bit scared, all trying to figure things out. We will all try, and sometimes we'll fail, and then we'll try again. We'll help each other, encourage each other, tolerate each other. We may even share our toilet paper and our hand sanitizing gel, and we will get through this together. None of us has to face things alone. Not in this church community, not now, not ever. Imperfect we may be, but we will be imperfect together. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Our closing song is I Know This Rose Will Open. I know this rose will open. I know my fears will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
As we close our service, I want to offer thanks. Thanks first to Reverend Ruth, who already in town said, sure, I'll come preach to an empty house. Thanks to Pam Carlson, who's been a faithful steward of our Facebook page for many years, building up the reach so that it reaches all of you. Thanks to Pat Hoffman, who came and helped set up this morning and was on duty to turn away people at the door if they came. Thanks to Chris Hoffman, who set up the mount for the phone that's broadcasting this right now. That, after the service a couple of weeks ago, looks like nothing so much as a tree octopus. I have to take a photo of this for y'all. Thanks to the worship committee, who, talking by email over the last couple of days, said, yeah, of course we should move online. Let's figure out how to make this happen. The worship committee, which ironically, at our last meeting, talked about how we would broadcast the service anyway, so it's just a little kickstart for us. Thanks to the board, who spent a good chunk of the afternoon yesterday in email conversations about the logistics and the wisdom of closing down. I'm so grateful to their leadership in making this call and saying, yeah, this is the right thing to do. This is what we need to do to be responsible to our community in the house and the community outside the house. And finally, thank you to you who are joining by Facebook to watch a service online at this congregation for the very first time in its 100 and many year history. It's good to have you join us online. I've seen some of the conversation that's been happening, and it's really beautiful to see those connections between each of you, between the people who are in their house around the corner and folks who are on a different continent watching right now. Thank you to each of you. We extinguish our chalice that it might warm our hearts. May this light light your path as you leave this place and guide your way until we're together again.
Siblings and kindred, in these challenging times, remember that courage is fear faced with determination. And so with all of our imperfections, let us be determined in our courage, face our fears, and trust that we will come through this. Let us all be blessed as we go in peace.